Welcome on Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, your host, joined by CJ Vogel. It's here, and it's time to break down the grades from the big game yesterday with the Longhorns and Mississippi State. CJ Vogel alongside. Thanks to our friends over at Allegiant Digital Marketing for sponsoring the show. Hey, CJ, I got to say this. Overall, the Longhorns come out with a win, 35-13. But each individual position deserves its own grade, and that's what we're going to do it today. I got a feeling that we're going to agree that perhaps the best position of any positions yesterday was what we saw from the quarterback. So let's start there. Quarterback Arch Manning, 26 of 31 for 324, 2 touchdowns. As we said earlier in Rapid Reactions, he did not put the ball in harm's way, not even on a sack, not even when he was running the ball. I mean, he just felt very, very solid the entire game long. And I'm going to tell you now, this is going to be striking because a week ago we were giving him he gave himself a C+. I'm going to give him an A to an A+. I thought he was marvelous on Saturday.
I totally agree. And it's crazy. I'm sitting there in the box watching Texas move the football as well as they did in the second half. And, you finished with, 520 yards of offense. And, Bobby, I'm sitting there thinking, is it crazy to say that Texas's best player today might be its backup quarterback, And you look at the numbers, and, yeah, they lined up. You have a 83% completion percentage, over 300 yards. You got 3 total touchdowns. I thought that was an A performance, maybe even A+. I thought he got in the end zone on that 27-yard scamper. He eventually got in on the QB sneak, but you saw the highlight reel plays, and you saw them a week ago. What the difference was is you didn't see the turnover-worthy plays. Completely dialed down this week, and the decisions were tremendous. I thought there was one really bright moment for Arch, and it was just the ability to find checkdowns. It was the ability to find the open receiver, and it was happening all day. It was a great, great step in the right direction for his long-term development, which is going to be so key and important for the future of Texas.
Yeah, I just look at it and just a tremendous performance. You hope for a young guy like that to improve from game 1 to game 2. And I know Mississippi State doesn't have the best defense. It doesn't matter who you're playing when you look like that, though, sometimes. I mean, he threw some balls that were absolutely on the money, and just hats off to him. I really think he was the player of the game for the Longhorns, which says a lot, given that this is a team that's, a top 5, if not number 1 ranked team in the country, after we see Alabama losing yesterday, or excuse me, Alabama beating Georgia yesterday. Look, let's go on, though, okay, because it's not just the quarterbacks, running backs. High point had to be Trey Wisner, particularly in the second half, starting to run through some tackles, finding holes. Low point, obviously, Jaden Blue's 2 fumbles.
It's interesting. You could give, a grade for the first half in the running game and a grade for the second half, and I think they'd be completely different. You combine the two, I think you're sitting at a B-, but it's probably teetering on that C+, right? 2 fumbles, you never want to see that from your running back room, especially from your running back 1 in Jaden Blue. It's been a recurring theme this year, right? The fumbles, the drops. I don't want to make it into a situation larger than it needs to be, but at some point there needs to be some sort of worry, perhaps, at that spot. But if it provides more touches for Trey Wisner, I think I'm all for it. Because the way that this might sound a little bit crazy, Bobby, and I want to get your thoughts on it, but there's a little Bijan Robinson to Trey Wisner. Just the way that he's able to wiggle through tight creases and fall forward without ever taking a truly big hit. It's impressive, and it shows me a little bit of what Bijan, obviously a very special player in his own right, and probably a level above of what we see from Trey, but the way that he's able to wiggle through, it's wildly impressive.
He runs a lot like Jamal Charles is who he runs like, but doesn't have that home run speed.
Right.
Now, all of 3 players in the history of the NFL have had Jamal Charles home run speed from the right. So it's rare, right? But he kind of bounces off of tacklers, kind of hunting and pecking. What I thought was great about Trey Wisner on Saturday is I thought he got better the more he ran.
Yes.
I thought he got more patient. I thought he found the holes better in the second half. thought he ran through tackles a little bit better, started getting used to contact and showing contact balance. I'm not saying he's ready to usurp Jaden Blue as RB1, but he had a good game. I like what they did with Jarrett Gibson on Saturday as well. They really limited his carries as he's nursing an ankle to get back from, so he's ready for OU in 2 weeks. I would give them a C today. Excuse me, I would give them a C on Saturday, and here's why, CJ. 2 turnovers. Jaden Blue cannot do that against good football teams. Period. End of story. It's unacceptable. And even though he is just a real weapon out of the backfield, he cannot turn the ball over, not twice in a single game. Period. End of story. All right, wide receivers. Other than the Jonte Cook drop, other than perhaps a holding, or I don't even know where some of those came from, actually. The thought process that I have right now is that Ryan Wingo is a special player, but they didn't even really need Ryan Wingo on Saturday because Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden are wide receiver 1 and 2 in this offense. And DeAndre Moore right now may be wide receiver 3. He had a tremendous game on Saturday. My hat's off to him. But Bond and Golden, clearly 1 and 2 right now in this offense overall. Ryan Wingo is kind of that guy that shows the flashes, but may not be the consistent day in, day out starter for the Longhorns.
Yeah, DeAndre Moore does all the dirty work, right? You know, and he's great in the blocking game. There was a number of plays that you could point to and say Texas doesn't have that level of success on a given play if it's not for DeAndre Moore. And again, Bobby, we've talked about it. He was, a yard shy or maybe a foot shy of a 3-touchdown performance. I mean, we've seen Texas try to get DeAndre Moore more involved. Listen, and when the ball finds him like that, I mean, you have to be very pleased when your other 2 targets are Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond, which, with the way that Texas started that football game with Mississippi State, in my opinion, greatly respecting the deep pass to go deep curl and then a comeback for about 35, 40 yards to Golden and Bond on the first 2 plays of the game. That set the tone there for me in my eyes. And again, I really love this Texas wide receivers unit, and it's special. You never truly know. And for folks that are, big MyBookie fans and you're out there betting on which receiver's having a good game, it's a total crapshoot. You don't know, but because of that, it's a total luxury for Texas because you have so many weapons that opponents have to game plan for, and you never know which guy's going to have the big day. So far, it feels like it's been one guy each week with the consistent Golden and Bond performance mixed in the each week as well.
All right, what kind of grade would you give the wide receiver, CJ?
That's probably an A minus. A minus. You didn't see.
You drop a touchdown pass. You drop a touchdown pass.
Yes. Outside of that, you had 26 receptions, and I thought that there was good blocking on the outside perimeter. It is funny though. You look at it, and had Jonte brought that ball in, you're at an A plus, and you're sitting at probably 400 yards passing on the day.
Unbelievable. I would say this about Arch and the ball finding DeAndre Moore on Saturday. I would say this: they worked together a lot last year, second and third team.
Good point.
Just keep that in mind a little bit.
Really
they may have, because obviously, first play, Arch came in against UTSA, threw a touchdown pass to who? DeAndre Moore. So just be thinking about that. Tight end, Gunnar Helm never really got going in the pass game, although he had several catches. He wasn't the weapon that he has been in other games this year. Juan Davis was targeted at least once over the middle. But really, Juan Davis, I think, is going to be the story of this game. I thought his blocking in the second half was one of the keys to that run game kind of getting unlocked.
That's a great point. I mean, I made a point of it on ontexasfootball.com during the game, Bobby. It feels like when Texas goes in that 12 personnel with Juan Davis on the field, whether it be the opening script in the first drive or kind of that first and second drive in the second half, you see Texas really start to move the ball very well. You're right. They're not necessarily relying on the big chunk play or the home run play, but it's methodical. And I think for Arch, a large reason of that is because of the 2 tight end package. And, the underneath wasn't necessarily as open as we've seen for Gunnar Helm, right? 5 catches, 23 yards, 16 yards after catch. There wasn't a whole lot for him, but he's a reliable target for Texas to continue to check down. And those throws weren't being made a week ago by Arch Manning, which is, again, a step in the right direction there. But to your point about Juan Davis, just to continually see his growth and overall, increase in usage in this offense, you got to like that, because it makes Texas, again, just that much more difficult to defend against.
Yeah, look, I would give them a solid B minus on the day.
Fair.
Not hugely involved in the pass game, not really able to wriggle free, but at the same time, Arch really honed in on the receivers. So not necessarily a fair grade there, but I think I'm about right. Offensive line is going to be more questionable here because I thought it was a tale of 2 halves, especially in the run game.
Absolutely.
And then all of those procedure penalties, a couple of holds on different runs or very, very important plays for the Longhorns. They held, whether it was a touchdown negated by a hold from Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell holding, not a clean performance for this offensive line. Yet at the same time, tremendous in pass protection. Absolutely tremendous, just stunning, actually, that gave Arch all that time to hit those really deep routes. I would give the offensive line maybe a B minus here. A to A plus on pass protection. C, or maybe a B minus on actually on run blocking, but a D maybe on acumen today, on Saturday, because the procedures, that they have to clean this up if they're going to compete. You can't sit there and have a 4th and 3 or a 3rd and 3 and make it a 3rd and 8.
Yeah.
Because you jump off sides on the opponent's 33. That takes you out of field goal range, or at least limits the field goal range, and also makes you. It could take points off the board, and they're doing it too frequently.
They are. I totally agree. It felt like it would be a 1-game situation for the snapping fractions against Colorado State. It felt like, the false starts would be a 1-game issue against Michigan. Holdings, they've kind of just lingered around, and it's been a lot of different players, right? You could point to each player on the offensive line so far that's been pointed at and had, deficiencies in their game. And it's interesting. I kind of look at it right now with this offensive line for their performance on Saturday. It's that photo of the guy sitting on the bus. He looks out the right window and it's doom and gloom. And that's the penalties. That's, kind of the run game in the first half. And then you look at him looking out the left side of the bus, and it's the pass protection. It's tremendous. I mean, Arch had all day to throw in a number of big passes that were, completed down the field for chunk yardage, but you have to live and choose and kind of get along with both sides, because it feels like that's just going to be the characteristic of this offense. And for that reason, I think a C plus is kind of where I'm leaning. I don't know if that great pass protection overcarries 10 yards in the first half rushing the football. Add that to all the penalties. That's not a good performance in my eyes. Not
against a team that has been run on pretty effectively by a number of teams already this season in Mississippi State. All right, look, I'm going to go B minus, I think, overall, because they did look. Texas racked up 500+ yards of offense. It's not like Mississippi State held them down. I think that the self-inflicted penalties overall were the issue that I have more than anything with the offensive line. And I don't think Sark was really scheming up the run game terribly well in the first half either. All right, offense overall, before we go on to defense, offense overall in your grade of this, clearly with the quarterback having the day that he had, as well as Trey Wisner stepping up, DeAndre Moore. We mentioned Matthew Golden, as well as Isaiah Bond, even on the what do you call it, the reverse for a touchdown. They put up 35 points, but they left probably 17 points on the field with the Jonte Cook drop and one fumble at least. Possibly the second would have cost them points as well. Mm-hmm. What do you give the offense overall? Because I didn't feel like they were opportunistic. is the best word I could say. I did not feel this was an opportunistic effort from the Longhorn offense.
I'm looking at a C plus again.
Wow, with 500 plus yards. That's how the mighty get graded, I guess, right?
Well, listen, you're at home. You're facing a defense and points per possession against. You're you're in the 120s. It's not a good defense. And 500 yards, that's great. 35 points, that's great. You're looking at a team that probably should have had at least 50 dropped on them. And I say that, and I think we all agree. Texas dropped 7 points by Jonte Cook. They were in the red zone when Jaden Blue fumbled. They were crossing midfield on their first play of the second half when another fumble occurred. And I think that there was just some lulls in the second quarter that we hadn't necessarily seen so far this year for Texas. And I think when you watch the film again, you'll look back and say, yeah, Texas should have cleared 50 pretty easily in this game for that reason. And 8 penalties. Again, I go back to that. You cannot be doing that. You cannot be stubbing your toe and shooting yourself in the foot all that much if you can want to compete against a Georgia and an Alabama and Tennessee, teams that offensively you're going to need to find ways to score points, and you can't be your worst opponent in that regard.
Were all those penalties against the offense?
I believe so.
I believe so too. That's a good point on that. I will say this. I will give the offense a B because I thought the quarterback play was outstanding.
They carried.
Other than Jonte Cook, and look, 35 points and putting up 500 plus yards of offense. I don't care who you're playing. That's a lot of yardage. All right, let's step over to the defense. But before we do so, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. That is Allegiant Digital Marketing. Did you know that among the top 9 challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones include finding customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation? What if I could point you to a local homegrown agency here in Austin that could solve these problems for your business once and for all? For more than 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing founder and CEO Chad Markham, a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Boot Camp here at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special today and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to learn more. All right, defense. Jeff Levy had a good game plan,
yes,
in my opinion. Go hard. Try to get them into third and short where your offense can be in control of whether it's a run, pass, do a little option game there with them as well. And I thought they had a good running back. So given that, what are we talking about here on the interior where I thought Vernon Broughton had probably his best day as a Horn? He had 5 tackles overall. He had a strip sack and a fumble recovery. What do you think about the interior of this defensive line? Were they beat up a little bit early and maybe shocked that Mississippi State was having some success on the interior? Your thoughts there, CJ?
Again, I hate going back to this word because I don't like it, but leaky feels like the term needed to be used to describe this interior defensive line, the run game. And I don't think it's a bad thing because, again, you're through 5 games. You've only allowed 3 touchdowns, but it feels like it drags on possessions much longer than they need to be. And that was the story of the first half defensively for the Texas Longhorns. 21 minutes of possession for Mississippi State. It felt like they owned it. And that first half was so quick because they just sat there and ran the football. They'd pick up 3 or 4 yards and they get into a third and short and they'd convert it by a yard and then they'd do it again. And it was the issue there is you don't have that T'Vondre Sweat that can just clog everything. I think Vernon Broughton is tremendous in the pass game. He's almost a little bit too fluid sometimes and getting between pass protectors. But in that same sense, you don't have that rock in the run game. And I think that's where Texas kind of gets beat a little bit. Whole picture wise, you look at the frustrations of the run game, and then you look at the box score and you say they ran the ball for 50 times. They only had 150 yards. They only allowed 3 yards per rush, but you felt that frustration boil in the first half. I look at it and say it's a B- because of that strip sack fumble by Vernon Broughton.
Otherwise, you'd give him a C?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. I think that Mississippi State was able to control the game running the ball in the first half.
They did.
And you got to remember that 50 for 150 That includes sack yardage. And that was a big one that, add that back in, maybe they're averaging 4 yards a carry.
Good point.
So, I mean, I think that's fair. Edge game, I felt like was better, and one of the reasons why Texas won this game convincingly in the second half. Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Colton Vasek, Ethan Burke all got in on the action at different times on Saturday. What were your thoughts about the edge?
Yeah, man, it's going to be fun when teams have to throw the football against Texas.
Yes, that is so true. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but look, Texas didn't play complimentary football on Saturday. Yes. If they would have, Mississippi State would have had no chance in this game, and it would have been a rout from the second quarter on. But Mississippi State was able to kind of hold the ball in the run game and slow down the Texas offense enough that they didn't actually have to start passing ad nauseum until the second half. And when they did, Colin Simmons got home. Colton Vasek got home. They started rushing the passer really, really well.
They absolutely did. Colin Simmons, 2 sacks and a holding called against him. I mean, as a freshman, man, I don't know what else to say about him. He every superlative, every accolade is going to be deserved by the end of the year. He's been spectacular. Barron Sorrell, using him in that NASCAR package over a guard or center, I think is very valuable for Texas. And then, of course, I don't know if there's a player right now with multiple sacks on the Texas defense that has a better snap to sack ratio than Bostic. Yes. I mean, it feels like he's in the backfield every time that he's in. I'm giving them an A. The one critique I would have is maybe setting the edge at times in the run game. I thought there was a couple moments where runs kind of leaked out to the side because an edge defender undercut a pulling guard, or they didn't set the edge necessary to what the play kind of asked of it. But at the end of the day, 6 sacks in that defense with the way that those guys were getting after the quarterback in big situations too. Really, really impressive day.
I'm going A as well.
I like it.
I think the defensive line on the interior, I'm going to give them a B-. I think I would change mine to a B-. Just thinking about it all together. Linebacker, not a lot of missed gap assignments on Saturday, but maybe some missed tackles, maybe getting caught in the wash a little bit. Anthony Hill was chippy all day long on Saturday. He just plays chippy. David Benda made it one of his patented behind-the-line plays as well. Mo Blackwell, Leonga Lafau getting a lot of time. What'd you think of the linebacker play on Saturday?
A second, third, maybe fourth consecutive game where I'm sitting there saying, whoa, these guys are flying around, and it's all stemming from the linebackers. Number of plays. Anthony Hill just throwing a guy down. Of course, he plays with that chip on his shoulder, as you mentioned, Bobby. David Benda, another game in which he's making big plays behind the line of scrimmage. Leonga Lafau and Mo Blackwell, I thought they got even more extended run today than we've seen in normal so far this year. But to your point, I thought they played sound. I thought it was a good day for them. I'll go an A-. There wasn't anything too glaring. On the one touchdown run, it was a blitz from Anthony Hill where he got maybe a bit too excited to blitz and, kind of created a hole in his absence there. But, you live with that, I think, if you're Texas, because of the high ceiling of his playmaking ability. That was a good read right away by Van Buren to see that hole and vacancy open up in the middle, and he just took off. So I like the linebackers a lot this year. A-.
All right, I'm going to go B at linebacker. I felt like they were part of the reason why the interior was leaky a little bit as well in the run game. Just a personal opinion, and I didn't see them making a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. Look, again, Anthony Hill is one of those players that's a little bit special, in my opinion, but didn't maybe see enough of that on Saturday.
It felt like cleanup duty to me for the linebackers.
Yeah, instead of instigating, and being the aggressor. I agree with that. And maybe that's what Jeff Levy's offense does, because if you remember last year when he was at Oklahoma, it put Jalen Ford in a lot of conflict as well.
His head was spinning. I agree.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, secondary. Mississippi State did not do much in the passing game, whether that's because of the pass rush, because of their new quarterback. They rotated in 2 quarterbacks, by the way, in case people didn't know that during the game. What did you think of the Texas secondary? If I had a play of the game, it might go to Michael Taft and his pass breakup. But the big issue for me there was inconsistent tackling. Andrew Makuba gave up a first down after having a guy wrapped up basically at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
There were a couple of different Manny Muhammad got beat deep, but they just couldn't connect. Gavin Holmes got beat deep, but they threw it into the sun. Guy couldn't catch it, right? What did you think of Saturday, secondary on Saturday?
This was the first game of the season, Bobby, where I looked at the second and said, ooh, a few times today they kind of got beat. And you mentioned those incompletions. One was aided by the sun, right? And the other one, I think it was just a bad turnaround for the football or a missed throw. But there was separation down the field for the first time this year. And, so far it had been a tremendous showing by this Texas secondary. Today, I think, again, another opportunity for Texas to get back in the lab and say, okay, we're not a perfect product. We got to fix this. You saw what was a great ball by Van Buren, in between Andrew Makuba and I believe Gavin Holmes that just fitted in perfectly. But there were three moments.
You can lose those. That was a perfect throw. It was well covered. The ones that I'm talking about were the ones tip your cap and go on. The ones I'm talking about, Manny Muhammad is beat by a couple steps. Gavin Holmes gave up the outside too easily, didn't use the boundary well enough on the big one down the sideline in the first half. I felt, to your point, I felt like, wow, that didn't look good.
First time.
A better team capitalizes, and a better quarterback, better receivers capitalize on those issues.
I completely agree. And again, you look at the tackling too, you add that in, it's probably a B- day. Again, you only allow 144 passing yards. You take that every day. You only allow 1 touchdown, 0 through the air. But again, there were some moments that could have been capitalized against a better opponent.
Defense overall, your grade there. I agree with what you said on secondary. Defense overall, less than 300 yards, but this was a team that I don't think Texas took the fight to them. And that may be my biggest issue with the defense on Saturday. I felt like Jeff Levy had a good game plan for that. What he did against Texas last year worked this year. Now, different level of skill with Dylan Gabriel running it for OU last year versus what Mississippi State had on Saturday. But still, I don't know that I like Pete Kwiatkowski and Johnny Nanson's game plan against Jeff Levy type offenses.
In total, it's probably a B. And as frustrating as it was in the first half,
6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss.
Again, when the game favored Texas and its strengths, when they were forced to pass the ball, it played into perfectly. 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss in the first half when it wasn't going Texas's way. And this is where the complementary football comes in. That's where Mississippi State was able to dictate. In that first half, again, I thought that kind of put a lot more weight on the overall feel of the game defensively. B, again, you're going to be pleased with 6 sacks. The strip sack was huge. I don't know. I feel like there was more to be desired, but through 5 games, you've allowed 3 touchdowns, Bobby. I believe you're only averaging about 7 points per game allowed.
At what point are you asking for too much, right?
I know. I feel like I'm too hard of a grader right now.
Yeah, exactly. I would go B for the offense, frankly, given who they were facing. This was a brand new quarterback, or 2 brand new quarterbacks, essentially. I thought they allowed Mississippi State to take it to them instead of them being the aggressors against Mississippi State. Again, I wasn't in love with the defensive game plan, but it is what it is. I'll go a B as well. All right, special teams. Let's finish up with that. Not really much here. Silas Bolden had 1 return of about 20 yards on a punt that he fielded at the 5, by the way. That's a different story. But Texas almost had a punt blocked or partially blocked, it looked like, of the 2 punts. And they ended up going with a rugby punt later, which I didn't know Michael Kern could really do. So that was interesting to see. But overall, special teams, I think, was a wash. Mississippi State connected on its field goals. Texas and Bert Auburn doinked one off the upright that actually went through. But, Bert Auburn may not be having the year that he was expected to have when he's sitting there taking 4 field goals a game or 5 field goals a game. Now he's being called on to hit 1. And maybe his leg is not warm sitting on the sideline like it was a year ago when he had to go out there every 5 minutes to kick a field goal.
Yeah, it's tough to be the 3-point specialist and your first shot of the day is in clutch time, right? That's kind of what we're seeing from Burt this year. You know, it's a complete change from a year ago, but I think Texas fans and you and I would agree we'd take this day after day, right? Texas is punching those touchdowns in, and you don't necessarily have to rely on the field goal. The block, the partially blocked, I don't know if it was officially accredited or not. That appeared to be an issue. That is an issue, right?
Yep.
That was a clear run at the court at the punter, and you know, for a team like Oklahoma, where we saw a year ago how impactful a blocked punt was, that's not something that you'd like to see shown on film for opponents to capitalize on. That's not good in my eyes. But again, to your point, there wasn't a whole lot else to look at in the special teams. I do think at some point soon we'll see Silas Bolden crack one of those punt returns open for a pretty hefty return. He's very fun to see with the ball.
He's been close a couple times. Yes. Been close a couple times, and I thought he was close on Saturday as well. I'm going to give the special teams a B, simply because I didn't think they hurt Texas. I didn't necessarily think they helped them. The kickoffs all unreturned, etc. Just one of those normal games. All right, Longhorns win 35-13. That's the final. Overall, I just think it was an uneven, non-complimentary performance. We thought even if Arch Manning has to go 26 of 31 to have a convincing win, and the game's still in doubt in the third quarter, I don't know that that's good complimentary football that we saw the first 4 weeks out of this Texas team. Now, granted, Quinn Ewers, we both know just based on his acting and how he was out there on Saturday, he's going to go against Oklahoma. It is 100% clear. So Texas will get back with him. But, man, Texas has got to play complimentary football if they want to be their best, because their best defensive scheme is when they can get after the passer. I think that may be what we learned about this Texas team on Saturday as much or more than anything. They can't let a downhill running team just bleed clock on them.
The Texas offense has to dictate what happens for the opposing offense, in my eyes. You get out early, you force the opposing team to, you know, kind of throw away what was their working game plan for Mississippi State in time of possession and ball control, force them to pass the ball and let Texas's horses up front get loose out of the stable, because they got a lot of them, and they're very talented. That's how Texas plays complimentary football, and we saw it in the second half.
All right, that's going to do it. Thanks again to our sponsor, our friends over at Allegiant Digital Marketing. If you're a business owner who struggles with finding new customers, consistent leads, or marketing services to promote your business that actually work, call founder and CEO Chad Markham, an Austin-based advertising. Allegiant Digital Marketing has helped thousands of business owners just like you for more than 25 years conquer these same challenges. If you're ready to start making money in your business and grow with confidence, visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball and get a free marketing plan. Plus, you can save up to $2,500 in advertising with their Hook 'em Horns special today. Give Chad and his team a call. Allegiant Digital Marketing. All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back later today. We're going to break down Arch Manning's tremendous game, 26-31 for 324. We also have the rewatch, second watch, with Rod Babers coming up. He's dotting his I's, crossing his T's, looking back over the game film as we speak. And then we have the live stream later tonight. For CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. That's going to do it for the grades of On Texas Football versus the folks at Mississippi State. Texas 1-0 in conference, 5-0 overall. Hook 'em.